So here's let's just jump right into it.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
My next guest is a director, activist, filmmaker based out of New York by way of London, Canada. You may know her from being the first classical soloist to start her own record label and being my favorite iguana mama. Shout out to Baby Octavius. And what we are here to talk about today is the new documentary, Dear Lara, making its premiere at the world premiere at Santa Barbara's International Film Festival on February 6th. Lara St. John, welcome to the podcast.
Oh my gosh. What can I add to that? What an opening.
I have to. Like, I watched this film and it is gripping. It's not exactly what I would like to call the easiest storyline in the world. However, this is such a beautiful film about a very horrible thing.
Yeah.
And if for nothing else, I want you to know from me to you, you helped a lot of people based on, well, we'll get into that in a second, but I'm very curious. What made you feel like this is the time to not only tell your stories, but help other people tell theirs?
I became public in 2019. So that's now going on 7 years ago. It was a combination of things. First of all, I'm 54 now, and at the time I was 48 years old. And I realized that suddenly I don't have to, kind of play the system to survive anymore. Like, even if I never play one more note on the violin, I know that I'm not going to starve. I'm not going to waste away. And, like it was all kind of about survival up until then. And then I just decided, well, look, if the profession is going to blacklist me for coming out about what happened to me, fine. It's not what I want to be in anyway, if that's what they do. And also, there was a little bit of a zeitgeist at the time, 2017, 18, that was like the sort of the beginning of the Me Too movement. And there was an article about one of the women in my film by another of the women in my film, the Washington Post article, and Zenova Bowers was in it. And that was that was inspiring to me in a way. I was like, wow, she came out with her own name and all this stuff. And I thought, this is probably something I should do because this stuff is still going on, I'm sure. She
Right.
says, like, oh, I guess it is, or something. And then the article came out, and hundreds, if not thousands, of people reached out. And I now know very well that has been happening and is still happening all over the world.
Now I'm very curious, especially while making a doc like this. Telling your own story is going to be tough. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
But how was it to get others to tell theirs? And I am doing my best so I don't spoil anything. There's a few I want to get to, but I'm kind of like walking around it because some, ooh boy, let's just put it like
Yeah.
that. But how was it to get them to say, hey, maybe you should tell this to a larger audience?
So that's why I started out in the beginning, like way back in 2019, with just a little camera and me, right? So that, I was like, I just really want to document this. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't think about it being a full-length documentary or anything. Um, and all these people, everybody who reached out because they know my story. And so, therefore, I think it was a lot easier for them to be talking like directly at someone who understood completely from the inside out, outside in about what they were talking about as well. And there wasn't like, there's a lighting guy over here and a camera guy over here. It was just me at the beginning. And so yeah, I think I got some really incredible testimonials from a lot of these people telling their story.
Now, what are the things that you said? And it really struck me in a way because you said you're more likely to occur these situations in the classical music space or these institutions. Now, I grew up child of the 90s. Um, we were always warned about pop music. There was always a
Mm.
behind the music or of sex, drugs, rock and roll and stuff like that. But how was it to come to you in the more classical, this is supposed to be the sophisticated people stuff? How was that able to, hide this type of behavior?
Well, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, like I think, rock has that reputation and pop and all that, but that tends to be, bands and groupies, say, for
Mhm.
example, in classical, just because of the nature of the amount of fine motor coordination that's needed, you actually, for violin, cello, piano, and various other instruments, you have to start really young. Like I was 2.5 when I began. I played my first concerto at 4. I know that's ridiculous, but um, you don't really have that in other professions. And you also don't have as much, you don't have these teachers and these concert masters who are given inordinate amounts of power over the children, over the students, over the people that they're clearly have power over. So, I mean, yes, there's problems, of course, in every field, but I think it's particular in classical music because you have these children with these men who, and some of whom abuse this godlike status that's given to them. And so what I really want to change is that that status, for one thing. I mean, I don't think anybody should be deified or like given messianic power just because they're like good at playing a box with strings on it. I mean, come on. That's not reason
Right.
to become a god. And it just and what really got me though was the institutional complicity, the way the places that employed these men protected them and shoved the women, the students, the children away in order to protect them. So, that's it's been a real learning journey of 7 years. That's for sure.
One of the things that about this doc that I can't help but to shake. Now, I haven't seen anything like this outside of the movie Whiplash. Um, but even that was more violence than it was
That
sexual.
was psychological abuse, I
Yeah,
would say,
exactly.
rather than sexual. Yeah. I mean, one that's, I mean, obviously very far away from this, but do you remember Spotlight from 2012 about the
Exactly.
Catholic? Yeah.
Yes.
So I would say that would be closer because it was also about extreme sexual abuse by people in positions of great power. In that case, you had these priests and these guys who would say, if you don't do this, God will rain fire and brimstone on you. And, these poor children with that kind of threat, it must, I just can't, well, I can't imagine how scared they must have been.
Now, one of the things about this is I can't help but to watch this doc and see what potential you probably shattered because of like we're talking kids grade school and up who's dope with a cello, dope with classical music, and then you probably ruined so many lives and so many dreams because this practice was going on. So something that was under the radar. Obviously, if this happened to me, I'm good. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's happened to countless women, and I call it a big brain drain because there's all this talent and all this work and this love for music and creativity that the world never got to see because of how, I mean, you hit it on the head. Yeah, it's so many people have quit. I spoke to countless who can't even listen to music anymore.
Mhm.
So this thing that they absolutely love, the thing that they wanted to spend their life doing, has been taken away from them in such a revolting manner.
Now, now, one of the things you said in this doc that
Mm-hmm.
I thought was just profound, but at the same time, I'm very curious of how this kind of affected you because when you drop a bomb like this, you said sunlight is the best disinfectant. End quote. So when you shine a light on these people, not just from your own life, now with this doc, the other institutions, other light, how has that now? Is there a change? Are you seeing changes or protocols being put in place where we're going to check some of that power that we give you?
Well, you've seen this documentary,
Hmm.
but you're one of I don't know, a couple hundred people so
Okay.
far
Okay.
because it's having its world premiere on Friday.
That's correct.
And so what's actually kind of what gives me, I don't know if I should say satisfaction, but um people know that it's coming out and nobody knows. who or which schools or whatever. So I'm pretty sure that there's quite a bit of butt clenching out there right now in in classical music, and that kind of makes me nod my head and say, well, you deserve it. If you're worried about this film, you probably have a reason to be. And
Now,
yeah, so we have world premiere on Friday.
mhm.
If anyone is listening from Santa Barbara or the environ, it's at 5:20 on Friday evening, and that's our world premiere,
Now,
Barbara Film Festival.
I'm very curious about that because on the filmmaking side of it, not just necessarily the activism and what's activism that you have done with this, but on the filmmaking side, I'm very curious to know what was the most what was left on the cutting room floor because you filmed it was close to about an hour and a half, and
Yeah.
I'm sure these stories could go on and on and on and on. What was left on the cutting room floor where you felt like, maybe I should talk a little bit more about this?
Well, I had a great editor. Like at first in 2021, because I used to edit my own music videos, because I got really annoyed that nobody could ever synchronize violin playing properly. And so I just learned to do it myself. So I'm kind of a self-taught music video editor, but of course, there's a huge difference to that and a full-length documentary about abuse.
Yeah,
So yeah, and so I had a great editor and Christy Herring, and everything that whenever I said, hey, there was this bit about this in this place, why is that no longer here? Always had a reason, and always had, I would say 95% of the time, a compelling enough reason for me to say, I see. Okay, I understand how that helps it go along. And uh, sometimes, I had to, there is one person who ended up just not being in the film anymore because we just felt that having a like a sort of a cover in front of her face,
right.
it just really took the audience away. Everybody else is using their own name and their own face and everything, and I felt that she was really frightened, and that's why she needed the cover. And I didn't want to frighten this girl anymore. She already had enough abuse in her life, and she was so scared because she grew up in a cult that her father might figure out that it was her. And I said, you know what? Let's just, you be an ally. You stand there and cheer from the sidelines about for all of us, and let's take you out of this. Because I did really want everyone to be comfortable with what they said.
Right.
And so I actually spent a month and a half, was it last summer? The one before, actually, taking around a rough cut to everybody, like going to their villages in Italy and Amsterdam and Portugal, even
Right.
down to Texas, and showing them the film and saying, speak now, because this is basically what's going to be in there. And everybody said, nope, I stand behind what I said. I'm absolutely happy for this to go into the world. So that makes me feel a lot better about such things, because I certainly wouldn't want to put something out there that someone didn't approve of or didn't agree with.
Right. One thing I think we can all agree with, especially about a documentary like this, with a lot of tough subjects and a lot of situations that is not easy to talk about. The
Mm-hmm.
soundtrack was banging, man. Say what you want, say what you want about the subject matter, but that soundtrack, oh boy, I
Thank
did
you.
I did listen to it again. I watched it, but I had it in the back, getting ready for this interview to listen to the soundtrack. There was a lot of, and I am not by no stretch of the imagination the biggest classical music guy, but I know what I like. But I heard some oldies, some goodies, some stuff I heard before. You had some of your cuts in there from
Yeah.
your previous albums. Can you tell us a little bit about the formation of the music in this project?
So some of it is pre-written music. Obviously, I use some archival stuff of myself when I was 4 and 14, and those are obviously pieces written by other people.
Hmm.
When we went into the orchestral part of it, I used Schubert's Eighth Symphony, for example, and Schubert's Third Symphony. But the rest of it, the stuff that you hear underneath, the stuff that you see me playing, is that's the Dear Lara soundtrack. So I basically wrote that and I recorded it myself with four friends because we used a string quintet, so bass, two violins, and viola and cello. And yeah, there's it's because it didn't make a lot of sense for me to bring in a whole bunch of electronica or percussion or something like that because it's just not about that. It doesn't mean that I don't also love that kind of music, but
Right.
because it's about classical music, I thought, well, doesn't it make a whole lot of sense to have basically a classical soundtrack? But that being said, it's every note, every rhythm, every bass line has a meaning to me. There's a reason behind every single note. So for me, it's thank you for saying that because that's very, very, very cool to hear that
Yeah,
somebody
it is.
did
And
the
like,
soundtrack.
there's gonna be, and I gotta ask, I got like two more questions because I know we're up against it. I know we're
No,
on,
that's fine. No worries.
but one of the things I gotta ask the big question. This is the big question because Friday, is the big day. February
Yes.
6th, Santa Barbara International Film Festival. You're a filmmaker. You're an artist. You're we quote Erica Badu over here. You're an artist. You're sensitive about your shit. We have to ask the $1 million question. What do you
Which is
want the people to take away from this film?
interestingly, what I've found so far, and like I said, it's been viewed by very few people because we don't have a world premiere yet.
Hmm?
People in classical music have said to me, "Thank God you're finally like somebody's finally talking about this in a big way on film." People outside of classical music are all like, "Oh my God, I had no idea. I'm completely shocked that this is the case." So it's kind of a combination of those two reactions that I think will probably continue. And I hope they do because that's what makes people demand change
Right.
is when they're shocked, when they're like, just classical music, like I say in the film, everybody knew. Everybody's known about this for ages. What
Right.
I need is for the public to know because that is going to create outside pressure on classical music and force them to change.
Right.
I don't see any other way other than, trial by film, trial by media.
Yeah.
If you make a complaint to HR, nothing ever gets done in classical music, as you can see from all of the people I spoke to.
It wouldn't be that many people. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, the whole reason I did this is to help people and to make my stupid little profession change. I can't change the world, but maybe I can help people in my profession. And I mean, these schools are going to continue. People are still going to go to these schools at like 13, 14 years old. I want them to be safe doing that. I want women to have the same chance as men do in this field, which they
Right.
don't at the moment. Like that road is like full of bombs and terrible things that happen, and that's why so many have left. Like you said yourself, if something like that happened, you'd be like, okay, I'm out. Yeah, no
Yeah.
more. Yeah,
Now,
and that's good.
one thing I have noticed during my studying and looking at the doc and looking at your career is it's very safe to say that your career has fueled your activism. Now, has your activism affected your career?
Well, you know, if you think about it, I've actually been working for 50 years,
Okay.
right? That's more than most people, even if they're quite a bit older than me. Because I started working when I was 4. I mean, it's ridiculous, of course, but that's how it is. I I myself have affected my career, I think, a little bit. Like for me now, moving on, it's much more important to go to various schools along with this film and do question and answer and maybe do a class about this kind of thing rather than play one more Mendelssohn concerto somewhere. I mean, yes, I can play the one more Mendelssohn, and not that there's anything wrong with Mendelssohn.
Hmm.
I've probably played it 100 times, and that's just not interesting for me anymore. For me, it's more about advocacy going on.
Okay.
So and these days, like I said before, I had to know that I didn't have to do it for survival anymore before I became public. And because of that, I only do what I want to do. Like,
Okay.
so I've taken some gigs recently because they're in a place I want to go to. And that's the only reason. Or it's a repertoire that I think is really interesting and exciting and new, and I want to do it. So I don't do any more stuff that I don't want to. So I don't think it's affected my career as much as I have affected my career by just starting to say no.
And that makes sense because you're at the point now, you said it yourself. You can do whatever you want to do. You're not bound by someone else's approval. I mean, we talked about this
Right.
earlier. It's your record label. What you gonna do? Fire you? What are you gonna
Well, yeah, but it's more about live concerts. Like I just,
do?
if there's no really good reason, I just don't do them anymore. So for example, my next concert after this premiere, I took it because of where it is. It's in Parma, Italy. And all I could think of was like, oh my God, ham and cheese, ham and cheese. I want to go where.
Yeah, hey, trip to
So
Italy? I'll take it.
I know, right? So, and then, somebody said to me, well, you could just go to Parma and not play this concert. And I said, yeah, I know I could, but I wouldn't, you know, like,
It makes
so
sense.
this is, yeah. So anyway, it's all stuff like that, but I'm prioritizing by far this film now because, it's kind of, it's my life and a lot of other people's lives. And those of us in the film are representing thousands more behind us. And this is just something that, I want to be my life's work moving forward.
Well, Lara, I gotta tell you, if this is your life's work or you gotta hang it up right after that, I said in the beginning, you helped out a lot of people, especially, and God willing, this Friday, you're gonna open the doors on a lot of institutions that may or may not be ready for it. That's the nicest way to say that.
Yeah.
So I thank you for your time. I know we're up against it. You're welcome back to the podcast anytime you want. Any new projects, anything you just want to kick it, you can. This is this has just been such a good meeting, and I'm better for knowing you.
Oh, thank you. Likewise. It was really fun talking to you.
Laura, have a great one.
Thanks, Sam.
All right, bye.
Thank you, Sam.
All right. See you.
Have a good one.